All right, so now we're going to go into some different types of boundaries. So I'm going to list off some of them and then I'm going to go into detail about different ones. So we have sexual boundaries, we have time boundaries, we have physical boundaries, we have emotional boundaries, we have intellectual boundaries, and we have material boundaries. So I may have to do, honestly, a part 3, just in case I can't get all of it in a short period of time here. But the first one is sexual boundaries. So this goes into play when you think about your boundaries or what you feel comfortable with as far as consent, sexual intimacy, understanding your levels of comfortability with intimacy. If you have any limits, being able to express that to your partner. This can even go, and this kind of goes into physical boundaries too, but where you like to be touched. Do you want a hug? Are hugs not okay for you? You know, how would you define your personal space? What is someone being in your personal space? What are you comfortable with when it comes to your body and how people interact with your body? Right? What are your limits when it comes to intimacy? Are you able to kind of explore and kind of express those to people that you're in a relationship with or that you're being intimate with? Right? Think along those lines. Now we're talking about like time boundaries. All right, and we talked about this a little bit in the first video in part 1, but this is a good thing I wrote down about when you think about time. Is there time set aside for you? Do you have intentional time set aside for you? Is this time protected? Because the boundary can help you protect the time that you have reserved for yourself, but you have to enforce the boundary and you have to communicate the boundary, okay? Another example that I used in the first time was, maybe putting your phone on do not disturb after a certain time so your sleep won't be interrupted. It can also go into this space of how much do you charge for your time, right? If you're providing a service and you have time boundaries and a person, and maybe in your policy you say for 30 minutes I charge this, but for 2 hours the price is gonna go up. I'm gonna charge this amount, right? Do you hold to those boundaries when it comes to your time? Another way to think about your time boundary is to look at it from a perspective of like, you cannot get time back. You can't get your time back, right? So once we look at time in that way, it's like, well, how do I become more intentional about this resource that I cannot get back? What do I define as time wasters? So a time boundary may be setting a personal boundary with yourself, saying, I'm just going to spend about 10 minutes on social media today. Because I know if I spend more than 10 minutes, it's going to waste my time, and then 5 hours will be gone and I don't even know where they went. Okay, so those are some examples of time boundaries. Another one is emotional boundaries, and I talk about emotional boundaries all the time, so my mind just goes when I say emotional boundaries. But when you think about emotional boundaries, it's becoming aware of your triggers, right? And not only becoming aware of your triggers to always avoid them, but it's knowing, okay, this is not an emotionally safe situation for me, so I need to set this emotional boundary. So, say for example, you say, as part of my emotional boundary, I am going to kind of remove myself from a situation where there's yelling, because I know that yelling and unproductive fighting, it triggers me, right? Or it can even be an emotional boundary that says, I'm not gonna watch too much of this type of television because it plays with my emotions, and my emotions are haywire. So I need to put this personal boundary in place that I'm just gonna watch one show of this TV channel because it plays with my emotions. Another way you can think about emotional boundaries is if you have someone who crosses, or that you feel resentment or anger from because they talk to you in a certain way, or they are always critical of you, or downplaying you, or discouraging you, and you say, you know, I have to, if you have to interact with this person, like I have to interact with this person, but I'm going to limit their visit to 5 minutes, or I'm going to make sure that I set the time that they can come. So whereas they would come in the afternoon when I'm already tired, I don't have the energy, it's hard for me to stay in a positive state, I'm going to change around their meetings to in the morning. When I'm fresh, I can still engage in, it's right after my meditation time, like I can engage. That can be an emotional boundary as well. If it's someone that you don't kind of need in your life, or someone that, you know, you realize, okay, this is kind of becoming toxic, then maybe the emotional boundary is to say, hey, I've communicated to you over and over again how the things that you do kind of make me feel, or how, you know, your behavior is not okay. You continue to cross that boundary, so I'm gonna have to set a firmer boundary and kind of cut off access to me from you, right? So it just depends on what you've noticed about your emotions in your interactions with yourself and with others and with the world around us. We're constantly being stimulated by different things, whether it's the news, our coworkers, our kids, our environments, our jobs. So it's so important that we take time to tune in to our emotions and to see, okay, I get really irritated when this happens. An emotional boundary can even be related to food, okay? So you can say, you know what? I skip lunch. Anytime I skip lunch, my emotions, my anger is kicked up, my irritability is kicked up. Like I feel demotivated. So emotional boundary for me is saying, you know what, I may be busy, but I'm gonna take this time to get me a little snack, so that way I can take care of myself. It can make me a better person, and my emotions won't be all over the place. And I won't, you know, be irritated because I'm hungry. So different various ways you can put emotional boundaries in place, but another way that this can come in place is in relationships. So if you feel like you've communicated that something bothers you, and the other individual within the relationship just keeps on doing that thing, it may be a good time to place in an emotional boundary of, I'm expressing myself, but you're not hearing me, and I know you're not hearing me because you're still doing the same thing over and over again. Okay, so many different ways to put in an emotional boundary. So I'm gonna stop right there because I don't want the video to be too long. So this just became a part 3, and so I will see you all on part 3. Take care. Bye.